I'm Kim Garnett, owner of Brainy Girl, for those who don't know me. And I am super, super excited to have Bradley Damsgaard and Ryan Chintzes with us today. I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves, but let me give you a little bit of background first here. So we create or set up online courses for novice course creators using the Thinkific platform and help them with integrations and the marketing and technology piece. But there was a big gap for us in that a lot of our clients and students really needed to understand how to create engaging online courses, the actual course curriculum. And so by chance, I happened to meet these two fellows, and their company is Republic Digital. And so they got to work and actually created a course for us that lives on Brainy Girl U right now, called creating online courses with instructional design. So I wanted to have them on here today to ask them some questions that I get asked frequently and that you guys have asked me. And you can feel free to jump in as well with any questions that you might have. We're hoping that this will be interactive. When you do hop on, please make sure that you just drop a comment. Let me know who you are, where you're from, and make sure that you drop your questions in there as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Bradley to introduce himself first, and then Ryan.
Hi, yes, I'm Bradley. So I founded Republic Digital about 10 years ago, and I've been a video producer since 2010. And then for the past 6 years, worked at Hootsuite with Ryan, building Hootsuite Academy, which I believe has over 200 educational videos now. Ryan, is that correct?
Wow.
400.
400, okay.
Wow.
A little bit low on that number. So quite a lot of experience in the educational realm, building courseware, video production, all those things. So please feel free to ask me any question you might have about any of those subjects.
Awesome. And before we jump into Ryan, can you just tell us what Hootsuite is, Bradley, for those viewers who might not know?
Hootsuite is a social media management platform. So really, in a nutshell, if you are a brand that has several channels that you are posting to, you want to be able to, you can manage all of them in one dashboard, essentially.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'd check it out if I were you. It's a great product.
Yeah, it's a great product. Ryan.
So my name is Ryan Chintzes, and I'm the manager of online education for Hootsuite and Hootsuite Academy. And so my role at Hootsuite entails being a sort of senior instructional designer for all of the educational content that Hootsuite produces. And so, as Bradley mentioned, Hootsuite is a social media management platform, and Hootsuite Academy delivers social media education for people trying to use social media for business results. And so our library has 7 certification courses consisting of 400 educational videos in total.
That's crazy. I had no idea that it was that large, the Academy.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Amazing.
There's a lot in there, and all the content is kept perpetually up to date.
Awesome.
That has always been a challenge.
Yeah. Yeah. It is with technology and marketing, right? It's not like it's just an evergreen course. With technology and marketing being updated all the time and new things coming into the sphere, we have to keep those up to date. Yeah, it's a job.
Especially in the social realm too, with the platforms being updated almost daily, it seems like sometimes. So
yeah, and many platforms, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yep. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, if you've just joined us, please do drop your comments in and let us know that you're here, and let us know if you have any questions, and I'll probably reiterate that quite a few times as we move through this. So let's start, guys, with what instructional design is, because I know a lot of my client, student, audience base are really novice course creators. They're getting their first course or courses online. Many of them are not familiar with instructional design. So if you guys could break that down for us, let's start there.
Okay. So in using instructional design with respect to creating a course or creating a body of educational content is essentially just using a systematic approach to course creation rather than kind of doing it haphazardly. So it's really just approaching course creation in a highly systematic way. And so part of that systematic way is making sure that every variable, every decision that you're doing is subject to careful analysis and consultation with subject matter experts or with your target audience. So really nothing is left to chance. So you can make sure that every aspect of your course, whether that's the organizational hierarchy, the way that your course is structured, right down to every individual piece of content, is going to hit the mark, both in terms of how it's going to resonate with your students, and it's just like overall correctness and truthfulness and accuracy. So there's that. And another aspect of instructional design is that your course is structured according to learning objectives. So you start with high-level learning objectives, and you kind of structure your course, you build out from there.
Right. And I think that's the missing piece for a lot of these course creators, is they don't even know where to start. Mm-hmm. And so starting with those learning objectives and understanding how that actually creates the course and the structure and the content and, and, you know, sort of informs the course is a great place to start. And is that covered in the instructional design course? 100%.
Yeah, and in fact, the way that we built the instructional design course was with learning objectives. So we started with the 8 learning objectives that we wanted to cover, and then we built the course out from there.
Right.
And it's a much more rigorous and manageable way to approach course creation, because if you don't start at the high level, that highest level structure, it's really easy to get bogged down in your own material and kind of lose your way. So you got to start at the top, the highest level of your organization hierarchy, and then build down from there into increasing levels of granularity.
Absolutely. And I think this also, you know, for my audience, I think this also, the understanding here is that this doesn't just impact your course, because your learning outcomes, that's your promise to the people who are going to take this course. Mm-hmm. So if you don't have a structured way of delivering those learning outcomes, we can't really make that promise. Yep. So you know, the marketing of it ties right into those learning outcomes too.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah. And the best way to guarantee that you are going to deliver those learning outcomes to your students with your course creation is to use a systematic approach to your course creation, to use instructional design best practices.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So if we were looking at specific benefits for instructors, course creators, and students, maybe separately, what is the benefit of using instructional design for the course creators? You covered it a little bit there as far as not getting bogged down.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So you can get bogged down and kind of confused by your own material by using a systematic approach. You know, your course has a linear structure, and every topic follows from every previous topic. You're not introducing new material before a student is ready to have it. You know, so you cover the prerequisites first, and everything just seems like it kind of follows like a logical linear structure. An analogy that I like to use is with building a house. So when you're building a house, what you don't do is you don't take all your furniture and go dump it into the dirt where your house is going to be and then build a house around your furniture.
Right.
Right? What you do is you create a foundation, and then you create a frame and you put that up. And then you kind of build in from there with increasing levels of granularity. And then when that's all done, then you put in the final step, which is the furniture. And so I like to think of that in terms of course creation, right? So the foundation and the frame are the learning objectives, and all of the furniture and fittings and drywall and all that other stuff, that's all like the individual pieces of course content within the course.
And I think that's a really good. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and so you don't start with your course content first. Yeah. You start with your high-level learning objectives first, and then your course content flows out from there.
Right. And yet that's not what I see working with so many course creators. Is the concern is, you know, what PDFs should I have in here? What videos should I have in here? And I think that's why understanding the principles of instructional design is so important, because if you don't do it backwards, you're going to have far better results, right, for your students, and as far as course sales, and those students passing on your name because they've been able to get great results because they were walked through a process that makes sense to them, not here to there and here to there.
Yep. Yeah, students just learn better. If you're taking a course where each topic flows sensibly from the previous one, students will just retain the knowledge better.
Right. And so from that, when students retain the knowledge better from a marketing perspective, what happens then is they go out and tell other people about the course when they have great success with it. They share a certificate if they've gotten a certificate through it, and they'll take other courses from you.
That's right.
So again, this is the really core piece of it. And if this is not done properly, you're going to have a really hard time with all of the rest of it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want people to have a good experience. You want them to be able to internalize the actionable learnings, and then you want them to do those learnings, and you want them to tell people about those learnings.
Right. So let's talk, Bradley and I were just talking just slightly before we got on here about what I see often, which is courses being created and they're just information thrown at people. They're throwing information. It's just video, and all they're doing is spewing information. What is the detriment of doing that?
The detriment of doing that is that it's not a logical structure. So you may watch one video, and then the next one that comes up, it's like, well, how is that related to that? Or maybe the second video that you're watching presupposes some knowledge that you don't get until video 8.
Right.
So every subsequent piece of content that a student consumes needs to be part of a broader structure. And you need to be thinking through when in a course a student is getting a certain piece of information, and does that make sense at that particular time for the student to get that?
And I think the other thing that I really got from your course was how important it is to have implementation moments. Now you use different language, but activities and exercises and quizzes and things that allow your students to implement what they're learning. So it's not just information overload where they're actually not taking action.
Yeah. That's a big part of it with creating a course. It's not just, you don't want your students just to kind of sit back passively and have information wash over them. There needs to be both sort of a lean back and a lean forward component to it. So they're going to lean back, and maybe they're reading a PDF, maybe they're watching a webinar, but at some point you need them to lean forward, and you need them to try and recall what they've learned, and tailor that knowledge that they've just learned into their own context. And by doing that activity of actually thinking the learning through and thinking about how it applies to your own context is actually reinforcing the learning in their minds even better.
Right. So one of the things that I love about the course that you've created for us is that the structure of the course is actually the structure of your course.
That's right.
Of my, the participants of this course get to learn from the structure of this course that you've put together.
That's right.
So by working through the material and the structure of that course, it's really going to help them, create their own course based on those principles, because you follow those principles in your course.
That's right. Yeah. So we used instructional design best practices to create a course about instructional design best practices.
Right.
So the course itself follows the ADDIE framework, and the ADDIE framework is analysis, design, development, implementation, and evaluation. And that's how our course is structured. It's structured according to the ADDIE model. We use the ADDIE model to create the course, and we're teaching students how to use the ADDIE model to create their own courses. It's meta.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that about it. So for those of you who have just joined us, I'm joined by Bradley Damsgaard and Ryan Chintzes of Republic Digital, who have created a course for Brainy Girl U called Creating Online Courses with Instructional Design. And so we're doing a Q&A and shedding a little bit more light on the actual creation of your course versus the marketing or the technology or other pieces of it, the actual creation of the course. So if you've just joined us, drop a comment below, let us know who you are, where you're from. And we had a few questions from some of my viewers and some of my email subscribers. Hey, Karen, thanks for saying hello. So one of them is, how long should my course be?
There is.
It's when I get a lot.
Yeah. I would you believe I've heard that question before?
I do.
So the short answer is there is no right answer. There is no one answer for that. There's a few variables that you need to think about when deciding how long a course needs to be. The first is it's the needs of the content. You know, if you're creating a course on organic chemistry, you know, there's a lot of material that you need to cover there. Whereas if you're making a course on a very, very like specialized aspect of a particular software program, then maybe your course only needs to be 10 videos or maybe 5 videos, right? Whereas if you're doing a course on organic chemistry, it's going to take a year, you know, and maybe like you know, like 100 videos in a textbook, right? So number one, it boils down to the nature of the subject material. Number two, it boils down to your target audience, your students. What do they know? What do they already know? How much knowledge do you need to convey to them to get to them to a point where they're going to be confident in the subject matter? So there's that. And then the third thing is, well, what resources do you have available to you to create this content, right? So you may want to create a course on, you know, the fundamentals of organic chemistry, but if you only have $1,000 to do it, then that's not really gonna work, you know.
Right.
So these are the things you gotta keep in mind.
Yeah. So I get that question all the time, and along with that is sort of like how many lessons and how many modules for each. And I think the big takeaway here is there is no standard. You want to get your student from point A to result as efficiently as possible, and not throw in everything, including the kitchen sink, because
that's right.
I mean, what does that do to students on the other end of that?
Yeah. So one thing that I recommend in the course, you know, because I you know, I want to give like, you know, a bit of guidance. So what I could say is something like this. When you're initially brainstorming the structure of what your course should look like at the highest level, those highest level learning objectives, you know. So what I would say is like jot down the top 5 things that your students absolutely must learn. So jot down 5 things. And so I think that's a really great place to start. And maybe it's the case that you can't get just 5 things and you need to get 8 things. Or maybe it's the case that it's like, well, there's not actually 5 things. I can compress these down to just 3 things, you know. But that's a really good place to start. And so I think most courses, honestly, will have between 5 and 8 top level learning objectives. And so that's a good kind of guide in terms of the overall length, you know. So there's going to be 5 main topics at the top level, and then with varying amounts of individual content pieces that roll up to each of those top level learning objectives.
Right. That help them meet that learning objective in that module or chapter.
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah.
And if you're in a situation where you're brainstorming like the top 5 or 10 things that your students need to know, and you're like, my God, like I cannot get my list below 20 things that these students absolutely must know, then you know what? You might need to make 2 courses for that, you know? So I would say aim for between 5 and 10 top level learning objectives in terms of length. And if you cannot get it below 20, it might be time to think about divvying that topic up into like maybe a part 1 or a part 2 or a beginner or an advanced and that sort of thing.
Yeah. And I think that's really, you know, some of what you guys cover in your course, and I also talk a lot about it, is your buyer persona. When you know that person really well, you know who they are, you know what level they're at, you know where they're going to be starting, you know what they already know and you don't need to cover. And I know a lot of people sort of balk at the, you know, buyer persona or client avatar or customer avatar, but it's vitally important for every part of your marketing, every part of your course that you're going to create. Yeah, I think it's a vital component, and I'm glad you guys cover it in there because it reinforces the need to know those things before you start trying to create a course for these people.
That's right, because ultimately you are creating content for learners. You're creating content for people.
Right.
And so if you are trying to create content for people and you're trying to make it for sale, then you got to understand who your target audience is and what they need to learn and what they're going to spend money for.
Absolutely. And that's why this whole, you know, data mining before you decide to create a course is so vitally important as well.
Right.
Because that has to inform where this course comes from. If you just decide that you're going to create a course because you think people need this, it's going to be a real challenge. They have to tell you that they need this. They tell you this is their problem. And then you go, oh, I have a solution for that. And that's generally what becomes the course, right?
That's right. That's right. I'd say like 98% of cases, it's got to be customer persona led. You know, you gotta do your research on who your customers are and what they need to know, and then that kind of like drives the creation of everything else. I mean, there's going to be a small number of cases where maybe you are on the forefront, you're a pioneer of a brand new area of knowledge or topic, and it's like, I'm writing my treatise here,
Yeah.
and this is what people need to know, and they don't even know they need to know it yet, you know. But that's going to be a smaller number of cases.
Absolutely. And there's things like, I mean, you know, we use courses for internal training, like team training. Some people are selling to consumers, some people are selling to organizations. And so, you know, some of it will be, a lot of it should be buyer persona informed. And some of it will, you know, if you're working with another company, and I'm speaking more to my audience here, if you're working with a specific company and you're working with them on a project, they might, you know, be requesting different information be added or edited.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, you know, but those are anomaly situations, not the norm.
Yeah, let me give you another example. It's sort of a counter example. So yes, like, so the customer personas are obviously important. You should definitely get those fleshed out as much as possible, as soon as possible. But then again, there's the other thing you need to think about is the content that you're teaching. So a great example for, in my case, is one of our main things that we do at Hootsuite Academy is we teach people how to use the Hootsuite platform. Right. And so the Hootsuite platform has a certain number of product areas and functionality and features, right? And so our mandate is to teach people about all aspects of the Hootsuite dashboard. We need to teach them about every single aspect of it, every single feature, et cetera, right? So that's also guiding the course creation. So we, you know, just because we did some customer research and customers, you know, were like not sure if they needed to use, say, the publishing feature.
Mm-hmm.
In our case, that doesn't matter because we need to teach people about it because that's a part of our product. And maybe it's just the case that students just don't know that they need to know that yet, right?
Right.
So, you know, so I would also say as a counterbalance, you know, it's not always the case that, you know, your customer persona and what they state that they need to know always 100% determines the entirety of the course content, because you may have
For sure.
a certain thing that you're teaching. It's like, I know you don't think you need to know this, but you do, you know?
Yeah.
So you need to temper that as well.
Yeah. So one of the things that I say, and I don't know if you would agree with me or not, is create a course based on what they need, but deliver what they want. So they're going to buy what they want, but you know better if you know those things that they don't know. But you need to know some of what they want. Otherwise, they're never going to buy a course. People don't buy a course based on what they need. They base it on a problem they have, or a want, or a desire, or a pain point, or something like that, right?
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I'm lucky in that most of the time, if I were to ask a student, you know, what do you want to know from Hootsuite? And they're just like, well, I want to know everything about Hootsuite.
Right.
I want to know the full range of its capabilities. And so that's, well, great. We have alignment between the customer persona and the nature of the content, or the nature of the product that we're trying to teach about.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Karen says, this is a juicy topic. I love that. Terry says, hi, Kim, I have a question about learning styles. What have you found regarding the type of media students typically respond to? Videos, text lesson, photos, etc. P.S. Since I'm an artist, I'm never going to create a course on organic chemistry.
And that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think people, you know, many people, let's say 60-70% are visual learners. And so they do benefit from having, you know, some sort of visuals that are either delivering the content or reinforcing, right? So, you know, do you want to create a course that is just like long blocks of text? Probably not. I mean, you know, there's going to be some super dedicated learners that, you know, are happy to read just, you know, many pages of unbroken text, but some learners are going to need some supporting images as well. In an online environment with our audience, we have found that our learners really appreciate having video content. They like to be able to turn a video on or turn a playlist on and lean back and just kind of like absorb the information. On the flip side of that, video is more resource intensive to create. So that's something you have to keep in mind too, you know? So I can't just say, yeah, always do video because that's the best, because not everyone has the capability to create video, and not everyone has the budget to create an entirely video-based course. So that's something you need to keep in mind as well.
Awesome. And something I generally say is that, you know, there's different types of learners. There's some people who learn better by reading something. There's some people who learn better by watching. There's some people who learn better by listening. And you can sometimes meet those needs within a course with different kinds of course content, or having a video and a transcription for that video, or an audio. And I think the other thing that I have learned is that, again, paying attention to your audience is really good. So if your audience, if your buyer persona is a busy mom who's on the go constantly, maybe a higher load of audio, a podcast kind of course where she can listen to it in the car, or while she's getting the kids ready for whatever. Right. So do you think that your buyer persona should inform that somewhat?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've actually heard that with our audience, that there are people who will play the course while they're driving, and so that was a revelation to me, in terms of how we're treating the voiceover tracks, right? Just thinking through the fact that there's going to be some people out there that are actually watching this without the visuals.
Right.
So we can't just have like a visual only click through of how to use a certain Hootsuite product.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So I think that's really important to keep in mind, that there's different learner types. Who is your buyer persona, and how are they going to learn best? That doesn't there's so many tools now to be able to record it in a video if you want to, and then have the audio pulled out of it and send it into Temi and get a transcription. You could have all three in a lesson, if again, if it fit into the structure of the course and what you're doing, and it met the learning outcomes. But I think a lot of people think in terms of, I've got to film video, it's got to be video. But I think, that somewhat has to be determined by who your audience is and who's going to be consuming it.
Yep, absolutely. One cool trick I've seen on some blog articles, or like the New York Times, they'll have their article, the regular article, but then they'll also have like an audio version, so you can just listen to it. And I think that's like that's a pretty good balance between hitting different sorts of learning styles. So I'll even do that sometimes in the mornings if I'm getting ready for work, and I can't be reading it. I'll just press play on the article and just listen to it. And it's nice to have that option.
Absolutely. I actually do that on all my blog posts. I have an audio option on every single blog post, because I got so many people saying, I like what you're writing, but I don't have time to read it all.
Yep. Yeah.
And so, listening, even let's say you have a video course, a course is rarely stagnant. Would you agree that it's going to be updated and you're going to do something with the feedback you get?
Yeah. It's especially doing stuff with the feedback that you're getting. That's super important. And also, there's going to be some topics that are just changing. If you're doing a course on the the fundamental questions of philosophy, those tend to not change.
Right.
But you are going to get feedback from students that said, like, I'm just lost in chapter 5. Like I can't make head or tail of that. So you have to incorporate that feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. So while we're on that topic, this is another question I get. How many different content types do I need to have? PDFs, videos, quizzes, audio? What's your stance on that?
I mean, I don't think there's any rule that says you have to use all these different content types. Like, for example, we have found that our learners really like our video content. And so I'd say 90% of the content that we deliver is video content. But I think you have to check in with your audience. Like, when you're doing that initial audience research and you're maybe doing interviews with prospective students, you'd have to ask them, like, what sort of format do you enjoy most? Do you like reading things like in a blog format? Do you like audio recordings? Do you like video? That sort of things. But in addition to that, the subject matter that you're teaching may also determine what format you need to use. So for example, going back to this organic chemistry example, if you're trying to teach someone about the structure of molecules, it won't work to just have an audio only format. You can't just describe, the way that these different, molecules fit together. You have to visually show that, and so, in that case, you're going to have, some text with visuals as well, or maybe a video with animations about how it all fits together. So it really, it depends on the content and what, the nature of what's being taught, and also what your students are preferring in terms of receiving that content. So you got to know both those things.
Absolutely. So Terry says, we've definitely found our students watch the video portions of our art workshops but then rely heavily on audio when they're actually doing their own projects. I love the idea of more audio options.
That's cool. That's great info. That's great audience insight, and that can that can help you iterate on your course and make it even more responsive to students' needs.
Absolutely. And I think that's, that's something that I really encourage my clients to do, is to solicit feedback and then pay attention to it. Don't just file it in a folder and pretend it didn't happen.
Yeah.
And don't take it personally either, because if they take the time, if your students take the time to give you feedback about something, they've taken time out of their day to do that. It's generally not to attack you. It's generally, that's actually going to help other students like them. You're going to be able to improve your course and therefore have better student outcomes. And then they're going to go talk about it or come take another course.
That's right. That's right.
Software used to record videos. I get this all the time. What software should I use to record audio, video, etc.?
Yeah.
Where Bradley's getting excited.
There are, it seems like, a million different platforms out there to use. I'll just talk a bit about my preferences. So I'm a big fan of what TechSmith has done. So they have two products, one a bit heavier than the other. Snagit is sort of their lighter, and this is screen capture. So if you wanted to record what's happening on your screen or record yourself, you would use that. But Camtasia is my favorite, and it's because, say, like, if you want to have visuals, but also record yourself. So it'll do both of those things. So you could have yourself in the bottom corner, for example, speaking to a subject. And then if you built a simple slide deck, you can kind of go through your slides that way. So you're creating almost motion graphics and live action video. You could turn yourself off too. It has the option. And it's also a great way to edit video too. You can even put images in there after the fact. You can put another little video clip if you had, and it's very intuitive. It's a bit, it's a bit pricey. I think it's around $300, but it's definitely a tool. If you want to make a lot of video content, it will be essential to have something like that. So,
and is that for PC or Mac, Bradley?
Yeah, it's for both platforms, definitely.
Okay.
And then, that's kind of starting at the top. I highly recommend that, but also if you wanted to just get something for free, I know that most Macs come with
iMovie,
QuickTime that can record the screen of your computer, and there's also something called OBS Studio for PC, which I believe is still a free program that you can use to record your screen.
Yeah.
Or if you wanted to just talk to the camera, most computers now have great cameras in them. I would, though, highly recommend getting a USB microphone, a podcast mic, if you will, because that's one thing I notice with a lot of lower end videos is the audio is just poor, and that can really affect the engagement and the effectiveness of what you're trying to teach. So definitely look at investing, and there, you can get something decent for $50 really there, but it is really crucial.
And I've read lots, Bradley, that people will stick around for a poorer quality video if the audio's crystal clear.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, definitely. There's nothing more distracting or irritating than a crackly audio that's too low.
Yeah,
or too tinny. There's a ton of tutorials out there, but practice. That's something I can recommend as well. Don't think that you're going to be a one-take wonder. It takes some learning and some practicing and developing the skills to make videos. And before you get to that point where you're launching your course, definitely get all the feedback from friends, from colleagues, anybody that you think would be able to give you constructive criticism. Don't take it personally. It's about production, and the better the production level, the better the engagement, the more successful your course will be. And what else? There was also, and then editing, like Ryan says, if you don't have a big budget, then you're going to have to kind of sit down and learn how to do it yourself. So on Mac, iMovie is a great program to use for editing, and then on PC, Movie Maker is a great program. I'm not sure if it comes with PC or if it's just a free download.
I think it actually comes with PC, Bradley.
Does it? Okay.
I think so.
I'm always on Mac, so I'm not sure of the PC world, but
Oh, are you a Mac boy? Oh,
yeah.
Bradley, we have a question. Can you recommend a USB microphone?
Definitely. So there's a company called Rode, R-O-D-E.
Yeah.
And I've used several USB mics, but the Rode products are outstanding. I've never had a problem with them. I would just look at what they offer. They have different levels, but that definitely is a brand that I would recommend.
Bradley, is that R-H-O-D?
R-O-D-E?
ODE, yeah.
R-O-D,
yeah.
Yeah. I actually bought 2 of those Rode mics for our office, and they sound like $1,000 microphones.
Wow. I have a Rode lavalier mic that plugs into my phone. You know, when I started and I was filming a lot from my phone. And I use a Blue Yeti now. But I've heard that the Snowball's really good if you're
Snowballs are great too.
Laptop.
Yeah,
that's great. Just to reiterate Bradley's point, like, spend the money and get a decent microphone. Crappy audio just kills engagement. It just kills engagement. And it's just I see this again and again where people will put a lot of time and effort into crafting like a really thoughtful PowerPoint deck, you know, and then they, you know, with really great content, they've rehearsed it again and again. And then the sound quality is super hissy and tinny and it's unlistenable. And I can't get past 5 minutes of it. And it just seems like such a waste of time, you know?
I feel like that with YouTube videos, you know, like there's some YouTube videos that I feel like, oh my God, this content is so good, but they don't have a microphone and they're sitting halfway across the room and I have to strain to hear them. And if it's not convenient and if it frustrates your viewer, they're going to tune out. And if they tune out, they don't finish your course. And if they don't finish your course.
And one little tip as well, and audio quality, but the room you're in is also crucial. So be in a quiet environment. Don't have the window open with the traffic going by. Don't be in a hall or an auditorium so you've got nothing but echo. In the very, very early days, like I've even recorded voiceover with my iPhone under my blankets, and that is the there's a little tip and trick for the low budget video creator. It works great. It's like you're having a private sound booth.
Yeah.
Really?
Get underneath your duvet and use your phone, not too close to your mouth.
I love it.
And it's a dead great recording. It's
it dampens the sound. It is like being in a sound booth.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Great tip. Great tip.
It is a great tip. That is actually a pro tip.
Yeah, it's great because a lot of my client base, they're just getting their first course online. So there's not a lot of cash flow. They are looking to cut corners. So there's a question when you're trying to sort of keep it lower budget for your first course, where can you cut corners and where should you not?
So with again, microphones don't cut corners. The microphones just get a decent one. I think that you can cut corners in terms of what you're spending on video production software. So for example, I sometimes need to get people to subject matter experts to record on social media strategy, and they're not here in the office, so I can't get them into our studio. And so what I have them do is they'll make a PowerPoint deck. They'll put together a nice deck, which is free. You know, you can use Google Slides to create a really nice PowerPoint deck. So invest the time into that, and then we'll use QuickTime on their computer, which comes free on Macs. Yeah. And you can record your screen, and you can record yourself talking while the screen's being recorded. So you can just basically click through a PowerPoint presentation while you're talking, and that's totally free to do. And then, you know, because people also like to see faces in videos as well, put a face to what's being said. They'll also use their video camera on their laptop, and they'll just record themselves like, "Hi, my name's Amanda. Today we're going to talk about X, Y, and Z. Now let's hop over to this PowerPoint presentation," and then they'll kind of go through it that way. That's free. That is free to do it if you have a Mac. So I would say that is a way to make videos where you're basically you're cutting corners. I mean, you don't need to have it, you know, the Adobe suite for video production. You can do it cheap and cheerful.
Right. Yeah. Knowing that this is version 1.0. Like I always tell people, your first course is version 1.0. Yes, you want it to be as great as it can be, but you are going to be, it's a living thing. You are going to be updating and upgrading and different things along the way. But you got to start somewhere. But the important things are good audio, right? Having a good mic. Having a relatively clear camera, so it's not all grainy. It doesn't look like it was filmed in 1982. Right. Canva and like tools like Canva have great templates if you're looking for like worksheets or slide templates. Creative Market has those as well that are all professionally designed. So there's you don't have to start from scratch, guys, with everything that you're doing. There's a lot of templates out there that you can actually already start with. With PowerPoints, I used to, when I was just getting my first courses going, I would record the audio on the PowerPoint and then I would file export as video and it became the video. Then I didn't even have software to flip through. It was just already recorded and it came out as a video on the other side. So look into different software, figure out what the right one is for you, and then make sure it's as good of quality as you can achieve within your budget.
That's right. So another place that you can like cut corners is with subject matter experts. So you should absolutely be working with subject matter experts, as many as possible. But I'd say, draw on your personal network. Like, does a close personal contact of you have a connection they can introduce you to? And so one thing that you can avoid doing is having to pay subject matter experts for their time. So the extent that you can, kind of call in a personal favor or whatever, I think that can also save money. So and one thing that you can do with a subject matter expert is, instead of giving them, like a $500 or $1,000 for, kind of as a consulting fee, you can list them as like, as the primary subject matter expert on the course, so they can kind of refer to that, and it kind of bolsters their own prestige.
Can you talk just for a second about subject matter experts? Because it's not a lot. I don't see a lot of online educators using and utilizing subject matter experts. So can you talk about that just for a sec, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, even if you are, an expert in your field, and no one is a complete expert about everything. No one is. Even university professors who are writing textbooks, they're not doing it on their own. They're having their colleagues reviewing chapters. The publisher is sending out the book before it's published to, maybe 5 or 10 other professors who are all giving feedback on this book. No one is a complete and total subject matter expert unto themselves, right? You're going to have blind spots. There's going to be areas that you're a little rusty on. You're going to have your biases about, certain areas that you're really interested in and maybe that not other people are interested in. You need other experts to give you feedback on your perspective, and so those experts can fall into a number of different categories. On the one hand, you could have kind of like the theoretical people who kind of understand things, from a high level, kind of like more of a theoretical level.
Yep.
You can have practitioners, the people who are like actually doing the thing day in, day out, and then you can have people who just really understand the audience really well, And I think to the extent that you can be talking and chatting with all those different types of subject matter experts, is just going to result in a better course. Yeah. Cast your net as wide as possible. The more feedback you get, the better your course will be.
I totally agree. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because I would like to see more online educators, especially those getting their first courses online, utilizing subject matter experts. I think they'd have a better, fully fleshed out course with that kind of feedback.
Yep.
It's not only stuff that you might be missing, but maybe it's too heavy. You're unbalanced. Maybe the end of the course is really, really thick, and then the beginning was a bit light. So that's really important for engagement too, and an overall effective course is balancing out. So in the course that we created, we have a diagram that shows, like Ryan was mentioning, learning objectives, and then the lessons below that, and then individual content pieces that are going to go into each lesson. So you can kind of see holistically the weight, and you want to be always aware of that. And that's something that other experts can weigh in as well on your content and say, oh, you know what, you maybe got too much here. That's not necessary, even though you think it's crucial.
Yeah.
That feedback is essential for the overall course effectiveness.
That's right. As a course creator, you have biases. You
Oh,
have
yeah.
things that you're more interested in. You have things that you don't think are that interesting. And if you just do it yourself, your course will reflect your own personal biases. Your personal biases are not necessarily what's best for your students. And subject
Right.
matter experts are the way to counteract your own personal biases.
Yeah.
And come up with a course that objectively is as good as possible.
Absolutely. Love it. So this is the last call for questions, guys. For anyone who is watching right now, if you're watching the replay, then you can drop your comments in and we'll all be sort of monitoring it to be able to jump in there. So before I ask the last question that I have dropped a link into the comments here for my audience, and it's to get $50 off Republic Digital's course that's on Brainy Girl U called Creating Online Courses with Instructional Design. So through November 27th, it's just $147. So it's a steal of a deal because once you learn those principles, you can apply them to every course that you create moving forward. So I've dropped that in the comments. Again, it's the code to get $50 off through November 27th. So the last question that I have, if anyone else has any questions, feel free to drop them in here. Bradley and Ryan, if you could give one piece of advice to someone just starting to build their first course, what would it be?
I'd say start with learning objectives.
Yeah.
Like I said, start with your very first exercise, and after you've done all the analysis, you understand your customers, you have a good lay of the land, is just brainstorm what are the top 5 to 10 things that your students need to learn. What are the top 5 to 10 things? Take that list and then try and distill it down. Maybe you come up with 7 things. Ask yourself, is there a way that I can distill this down to 6? Can I get it down to 5? Number 3 and number 4, can those go together? And just try and get the most tight, concise list of the top things that your students need to learn. That's the best place to start, and then you can build up from there.
Great piece of advice.
I'd say, yeah, absolutely. The structure, it's, you want to just get in there and start making videos, and that's maybe the fun part from your perspective. But
for some people,
for some people,
it's terrifying.
We're like, oh, I already know everything I want to say. But yeah, to Ryan's point, definitely define those learning objectives. But when it comes down to creating your piece of content, if it's a video, try to script it out, like really, or at least key speaking points. No one likes a rambling video, and then don't make something 10 minutes long when it could be done in 3 or 5, so try to be as precise, have every piece of content in that piece of content, well thought out and have a purpose there.
Yeah.
That's very, very important to not have a bloated course. And
that's right.
To keep that engagement high, and yeah, and don't be afraid to do it a few times. Like I mentioned before, no one gets it right the very first time. So it's like learning an instrument. You got to practice and practice, and that is key, really.
Yeah. You don't want to waste your student's attention span.
Exactly.
You think like a student has like a certain, like a piggy bank of attention span in there, and you have, that's your spend, and you don't want to waste it in a webinar 5 minutes of ums and ahs and so I think, so we're gonna go over here, we're gonna have, like, cut it, make it tight.
Yeah, plan and script. I can't stress that enough. If you can script out, maybe not word for word, but exactly what you're going to say, so you don't get rambling or off topic and lose engagement.
Yeah. Every piece of content that you put in the course, it needs to be pulling its weight. Don't just toss stuff in. You're like, oh, maybe they'll be interested in this. No, like, make sure
I'm laughing because I've seen all of this. Yeah.
No, it's got to connect, and it's got to have a purpose.
Yeah, that's right.
And if you're not sure, ask someone else, even if they're not an expert, like we talked about. Just say, hey, what are your thoughts? And sometimes you can gain incredible insight from someone who knows nothing about your subject.
Yeah.
I think that's almost as valuable as working with another expert, is just, hey, if this is something that interests you, watch what I've done and let me know if you're actually picking up the learning objectives. Yeah. And if they're not, then you need to go back to the first step and redefine and create that, tweak that structure.
I love it. Karen says, I think I'm guilty of all of this. I think all of us at some point have been, as we're learning how to do it. And when you do one and potentially another one, or redo the first one, you learn a little bit more every time, and you get a little bit better and better at it.
Exactly.
Karen says, now I'm going to go redo my whole course. Sid says, I'm concerned my course currently being developed is getting too long. It's all scripted and planned, but concerned about the module length. So Sid, because I think you may have just joined us, go back a little bit and rewatch this replay, because we did sort of talk about how long is too long and what's important to have in it and so on. So go back and watch the replay, because there's lots of really, I've been able to get lots of really great information from this. I've got some great quotes I'm going to use for you guys that you've used throughout this. So I want to say thank you so much.
Let me just make one more point about the module length thing. So I would also pay attention to proportionality. And so, you know, like, is there certain modules that are much longer or much shorter? And so you kind of want them, you know, to be of similar length, you know.
This whole balance thing that Bradley was mentioning.
Yeah, and so if you have a module that, oh wow, this is going to take an hour to complete where the others are 20, then maybe you want to split that long module into 3.
Yeah, smaller chunks definitely is a better way to go than fewer bigger chunks when creating content. Absolutely.
Got it. Sid says, so sorry, I just joined. We'll look at the replay. Awesome. Good. And Karen said, can we go backwards for a sec? What about mics that can be used outdoors?
Well, you want to have a lavalier mic, a lav mic. So something that if you've got someone speaking to camera, for example, it just clips on your lapel. And usually they're wireless. So you've got a transmitter, and that's the best thing to do. The other option is a boom and a shotgun mic. Outdoors is difficult because there's wind, there's noise, unpredictability. There's
and
animals.
She trains dogs. Her courses are on dog training, so there's the dog noise too.
Yeah, so definitely you want something that's close to the subject's head. Usually clips right there, and that will be that's the best option, really.
Have you guys ever used Hey Mike?
No.
No. So there's this thing called Hey MIC, Hey Mike. I've seen some demos of it. It's been around for about a couple of years now, and it clips on. But I think it's got like almost 1 kilometer radius. It's Bluetooth, and the sound is like unbelievable.
Yeah, I guess it depends where that audio transmission is going. If it's going directly to camera, you'll need to have a transmitter. If you're sending it to a computer, then that's a whole other discussion there on outdoor video production.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely a wind muff around something is crucial, because there's nothing worse than getting back home, looking at your audio from your video, and it's just nothing but hissing, scratchy wind noise, and you might not necessarily hear that at the time. So protecting the wind, and there's a lot of different ways to do that, but that would be crucial. Yeah.
The other thing, Karen, that I can imagine that you might be able to do is film it, sound, and take the sound out and then narrate over it. That might work for what you're doing if you're not having to talk them through it. Maybe you could talk them through it with narration after you remove the sound from the actual video.
That could work for sure. Yeah.
Might want to try it. Terry says it's been really awesome, and thanks for validating the use of Macs and iMovie. She's another Mac girl of mine.
Ultimately what what iMovie's spitting out is an MP4, and an MP4 is an MP4.
Right.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
Absolutely. Anything else, guys, that you want to add before I say thank you to everyone for joining us, and you two for joining us as well?
Well, we've covered everything I can think of. I mean, everything else is in the course. And I think that there's also feedback forms in the course. If there's anything that you see in that course that isn't, that you have questions about, please feel free to reach out. And
that's right.
We'll help you out there.
Because we're also gathering feedback and iterating as well.
Yeah. We are in that phase for ourselves. We want to make the course as strong as it can be.
Awesome. Karen says, amazing. This has been super helpful, very appreciated. So Ryan and Bradley, thank you so much for coming on here and joining me and teaching my audience some really valuable things that they need to know as they're creating their courses. And to my viewers, please don't forget that I've dropped the coupon code for $50 off the Creating Online Courses with Instructional Design course made by the really talented guys at Republic Digital.
Thanks, Kim.
Thank you.
Bye.